Japan suffered significant damage during World War II, the damage that I think no other country had ever seen before. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were enough to shake Japan's foundation to its very core. But when you look at Japan today, nothing seems lost. How is it that a country which fell so low at one point became a leading nation today? Let's see in today's video as we uncover how Japan's secret strategy made it super rich even after the USA's nuclear attack. The term Japanese economic miracle refers to the period after World War II and up until the conclusion of the Cold War, during which Japan saw unprecedented economic expansion. Japan rose to the world's second largest economy during the economic boom. The economic miracle was the outcome of Japan and West Germany benefiting from the Cold War in the years immediately after World War II. When the United States occupied Japan, it implemented political, economic, and civic reforms, transforming Japanese society. It was caused mainly by the interventionist economic policies of the Japanese government and partially caused by the help and support provided by the United States to Asia. It is no surprise that following the conclusion of World War II, the Japanese economy was in shambles. For instance, by the end of the Second World War, the Japanese cotton industry had collapsed. Wartime administrators destroyed 2/3 of its pre-war cotton spindles, and bombing and urban area destruction resulted in a further loss of 20% of the spinning capacity and 14% of weaving capacity. Furthermore, a statewide famine threatened Japan in 1946, and American food shipments only stopped it. The Soviet Union's military threat and the virtually destroyed Japanese standard of living forced the United States to fund a comprehensive economic recovery. In the post-war era, all nations saw some industrial growth. Still, those who suffered a sharp decline in industrial output due to the war, like Japan, West Germany, and Italy, recovered the fastest. Japan's industrial production fell to 27.6% of its pre-war level in 1946, but rebounded in 1951 and increased to 350% in 1960. To properly integrate Japan into the global economy and rebuild the economic infrastructure that would later serve as the foundation of the Japanese economic miracle, the United States had done both by the time the occupation of Japan ended in 1952. The United States of America was concerned about the expansion of Japan's economy for several reasons, one of which was the possibility that an unsatisfied and impoverished population in Japan might embrace communism, thereby ensuring that the Soviet Union would maintain control over the Pacific. The deconstruction and reconstruction of Japan, which the United States led, demonstrated that democracy could be exported, that nations could be pushed to modify themselves, and that significant improvement could be maintained. The government's effective economic reform was one of the main factors in Japan's speedy recovery from the effects of the war. The Ministry of International Trade and Industry was Japan's main government agency in charge of industrial policy. Adopting the inclined production mode was one of the key economic changes. The phrase inclined production mode refers to inclined production, largely concentrating on producing raw commodities, including cotton, steel, and coal. More than 23.9% of all industrial production was dedicated to manufacturing textiles. In addition, the Japanese government promoted women's employment to boost growth further. The legislation on recruiting consists of 3 parts: restrictions on regional hiring and worker relocation, a ban on direct hiring of fresh graduates, and a provision allowing direct hiring of non-graduates under rigorous guidelines established by the Ministry of Labor. The cooperation of manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, and banks in tightly knit groups, known as Keiretsu, the powerful enterprise unions and shunt, good relations with government bureaucrats, and the guarantee of lifetime employment in large corporations and highly unionized blue-collar factories were some of the distinguishing characteristics of the Japanese economy during the years of the economic miracle. The start of the Korean War was the third factor responsible for Japan's quick recovery from World War II. The Korean War was fought on the grounds that the Empire of Japan had annexed until 1945. Shipping logistics from the United States quickly became a serious issue for the military. Therefore, the United States turned to the Japanese economy for equipment and supplies while taking part in the battle on the Korean Peninsula. The American soldiers fighting in Korea swiftly received the necessary ammunitions and support from the Japanese industrial sector. Demand stimulation helped Japan's economy recover rapidly from the devastation of the Pacific War and lay the groundwork for the country's subsequent swift expansion. However, some academics contend that Japan's post-war growth spurt would not have been possible without Japan's alliance with the United States. They assert that this is because the United States absorbed Japanese exports, tolerated controversial Japanese trade practices, subsidized the Japanese economy, and transferred technology to Japanese firms, which magnified the effectiveness of the Japanese trade policy. But even after SCAP pulled out of Japan and the economic boom fueled by the Korean War began to taper off, Japan's financial recovery remained unabated. The Japanese economy managed to pull through the several downturns brought on by the United States' decision to stop making payments for military purchases and has since gone on to make progress. Following the devastation wrought by World War II, Japan's economy had miraculously bounced back by the late 1960s, achieving full and total recovery in record time. The Japanese government made a significant contribution to the post-war Japanese economic miracle by stimulating the growth of the private sector. Initially, this was accomplished by enacting regulations and protectionism that successfully managed economic crises. Afterwards, the government focused on expanding trade. The Japanese government implemented an ambitious income-doubling plan under the leadership of Prime Minister Ikeda, a former minister of MITI. The plan proposed tripling Japan's economy in 10 years through tax reduction, targeted investment, and enlarged social safety nets, and incentives to boost exports and industrial development. The plan proposed an average yearly economic growth rate of 7.2% to reach the goal of doubling the economy in 10 years. In actuality, Japan's yearly growth averaged over 10% during the plan's duration, and the country's economy quadrupled in size in less than 7 years. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time!